April 3rd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the so-called Liberation Day tariffs by the U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a 10% baseline tariff on all imports to his country and 25% for imports from South Korea. Prime Minister and Acting President Han Duck-soo convened an emergency meeting hours after the announcement and getting down to drawing up countermeasures against the tariffs. South Korea is just a day away from the impeachment ruling of the country's leader, Yoon. Security has been beefed up around the Constitutional Court, which is now officially a no-go zone. Myanmar's ruling military government has declared a 3-week ceasefire in the country's civil war to expedite relief efforts after last week's deadly earthquake. Over 3,000 people have been confirmed dead as of Wednesday local time. The Trump administration has unveiled its long-warned reciprocal tariffs for all of its trade partners. A baseline 10% tariff on all imports, with even higher rates for select countries. Now that includes South Korea with a 25% tariffs. Bae-eun-ji has our top story.
The 25% reciprocal tariff imposition on South Korea has become official, as U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday local time signed an executive order imposing his sweeping reciprocal tariff plan.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day, waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen.
Trump announced a baseline tariff of 10% on all imports, with higher rates for select countries that he labeled bad actors. South Korea faces a 25% reciprocal tariff, higher than the EU's 20% and Japan's 24%. Major U.S. trading partners will also be subject to steep tariff rates, including 34% on China, which will come in addition to existing 20% tariffs on Chinese imports, for a total 54% tariff rate. The reciprocal tariffs effectively nullify the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, forcing South Korea to negotiate a new trade deal with the U.S. In response, Acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo convened an emergency meeting early Thursday morning, where he instructed the Trade Ministry to work closely with businesses to analyze the details and impact of the newly announced tariffs. He also ordered the government to swiftly set up emergency support for affected industries and businesses, especially in the automotive sector. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
Trump's so-called liberation tariffs are reigniting yet another global trade war, and South Korea is cornered and once again. How to survive through Trump's trade war this time? Let's turn to Professor Ha Jun-young. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Why a whopping 25% for South Korea when it's 34 for China, 32 for Taiwan, and 24 for Japan? Why is South Korea much higher than Japan and the EU?
I think the Trump administration's tariff policy seems to have been determined arbitrarily without clear criteria. The 25 tariff on South Korea maybe stem from factors such as South Korea's trade surplus with the United States, its reliance on specific industries, or the strategic perspective the U.S. hold regarding South Korea's economy. However, the rationale behind imposing higher tariff on South Korea than on major economic powers like Japan or the EU remains unclear, I think. This demonstrates that Trump's reciprocal tax logic may actually be influenced by political and economic calculations.
Well, it looks like the reciprocal tariffs were not enough for Trump because he has expanded its tariffs on aluminum to include now canned beer imports. The question is, should South Korea be worried here or not as much?
I think, yeah, it is some kind of worrisome in the sense that U.S. import 80% of their aluminum demand from the outside of the world, and Korea is number 4 export aluminum export to the United States following Canada, Arab Emirates, and Mexico. I mean, the amount is, in terms of last year, amount is about like $700 billion. So, I mean, like, today, I mean, he just included aluminum and aluminum-related product, including beer can even. So, yeah, we need to be worrying about because, like, we are one of the biggest aluminum exporters to the United States.
Indeed, and imports on aluminum, automobiles, and these tariff policies will highly likely be a blow to American consumers in the U.S. because they are going to hike up the prices and potentially worsen consumer sentiment within the U.S. Why is Trump taking the risk?
Well, many economists, including me, I mean, also including, like political scientists, like they believe that Trump's tariff policy seems to be aimed at short-term political gains. So he is attempting to protect U.S. manufacturing and jobs, reduce the trade deficit, and reinforce his American First agenda. Like, for example, particularly with the 2020 presidential election approaching, this aggressive trade policies may be a strategy to appeal to his voter base, especially those in industry regions. However, in the long run, like you mentioned, these policies are likely to negatively impact both consumers and businesses, not just in the United States, in all over the world.
So it all comes down to his America First policy in a nutshell. Then should we expect more tariffs to come? I mean, is this just the beginning for Trump?
Yeah, the current situation suggests that the Trump administration's tariff policy may only be in their early stages. So Trump tend to use tariff as a negotiation tool, and additional tariff may be imposed to demand further concessions from major trading partners. So South Korea, along with other trading nations, should prepare for the possibility even together measures. So fasten your seatbelt.
Well, that is why South Korea's trade minister made visits to the U.S. himself to sort things out, but clearly the trips weren't as fruitful as we all hoped. Then what kind of approach now should the South Korean government take starting today?
Yeah, South Korea need to maintain a cooperative relationship with the United States while building an independent response strategy. So, for example, we need to adjust U.S. negotiation strategies, like, clearly identify the specific demand of the United States, seek mutually beneficial conditions, and promising like cooperation in economic and security matters. And also, we strengthen multilateral cooperations, work with other trading partners like the EU, Japan, Canada to jointly respond to U.S. tariff policies. Finally, this is, I think, important, enhance domestic industry competitiveness. So to mitigate the impact of U.S. protectionist policies, South Korea should focus on securing alternative market and strengthening and domestic industries. So that's the thing.
Indeed. Professor Ha, it's always good to have you with us. Thank you for your time and your insight this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
결연한 구국의 의지로 비상계엄을 선포하였습니다.
With President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment fate to be sealed on Friday, we take a look at the various outcomes that the court's decision could lead to. How would the verdict affect the president himself and also the nation? Our Oh Soo-young explains.
The fate of President Yoon Suk-yeol and the nation hangs on the Constitutional Court's decision on his impeachment Friday. The ruling will mean immediate consequences regarding the governance of the country, as the leader's removal or reinstatement spells out very different outcomes. If the court upholds the impeachment, Yoon would become the nation's second president in history to be removed from office, following Park Geun-hye's impeachment 8 years ago. Effective immediately, Yoon would have to vacate his office for good and leave the official residence in Yongsan-gu district. He would lose all post-presidential privileges, no pension, no office, no staff support, and no burial rights at the National Cemetery. His protection would be limited to basic personal security. With the leadership vacuum made permanent, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo would continue as acting president until an early election is held within 60 days. On the flip side, if the impeachment is dismissed with prejudice, it would mean the court has found the National Assembly's grounds for his removal insufficient, and the case is closed for good. After over 3 months of suspension, the president would immediately resume his duties. It's expected that he'd then address the public through a televised message or press conference. His first tasks back in office are likely to focus first on foreign policy and national security, as there has not been top-level engagement with the United States since President Donald Trump's inauguration. Yoon would also begin laying out proposals for constitutional and political reform as pledged during his final court appearance. While his impeachment case would be closed for good, Yoon would still face investigations regarding his December 3rd martial law declaration, but during his presidency would be immune from charges other than for treason and insurrection. Another scenario is the court dismissing the case without prejudice. The case would be dropped due to legal or procedural issues, meaning the bench decided not to rule on the grounds or evidence presented. The president would return to office, but the National Assembly could re-attempt impeachment in the future. 6 or more justices must consent to uphold an impeachment. 3 or more justices deciding against impeachment would lead to a dismissal.
While sources say the justices have reached an understanding on the verdict, they're likely to sign off on their decision at the very last minute, either in the evening before or early in the morning of the ruling. This is to maintain utmost confidentiality.
The ruling takes legal effect the moment the presiding justice reads the decision on live TV. 20 members of the public will be selected through a lottery to attend the ruling. 12,000 people applied on the first day that registration opened on the court's website. President Yoon's attendance is largely expected, but has not been confirmed by his lawyers. Bucheon, Arirang News.
Myanmar's military government has declared a 3-week temporary ceasefire to ramp up relief and reconstruction efforts following the deadly earthquake. According to local media, the death toll has now exceeded 3,000. Lee Seung-ja has this report.
In a bid to speed up relief and reconstruction efforts following last week's magnitude 7.7 earthquake that struck Myanmar, the military government on Wednesday announced a temporary ceasefire. In a statement, the State Administration Council announced the ceasefire from April 2nd to April 22nd. However, according to local media MRTV, the military junta warned that if rebel groups attack, the military will take necessary measures. Earlier this week, the rebel Three Brotherhood Alliance, which consists of the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, the Ta'ang National Liberation Army, and the Arakan Army, announced a unilateral ceasefire to support quick response for 1 month. However, the military government had refused to do the same until Wednesday's announcement. Since the military junta's coup in 2021, Myanmar has been marred by violence amid a civil war between the military government and ethnic militias and resistance forces. As the country continues recovery and relief efforts, a hotel worker who had been buried under the rubble in Naypyidaw was rescued after 108 hours. The 26-year-old hotel employee was found alive by a rescue team, covered in dust but conscious. He was immediately transported to the hospital for medical treatment. Local media says the death toll from the devastating earthquake has now surpassed 3,000. Lee Seung-ja, Arirang News.
Wednesday's local by-election saw the ruling People Power Party win 1 seat in the race to select 5 local government chiefs, while the main opposition Democratic Party won 3. The by-elections also saw a surprise win for the Rebuilding Korea Party. Jung Cha-run was elected chief of Tamyang in Jeollanam-do Province, taking a seat from the DP. Tamyang has long been a traditional stronghold for the main opposition party. The Rebuilding Korea Party picked up its first local government head seat since the foundation of the party in 2024. The number of foreign nationals who visited South Korea last year for medical procedures was nearly double compared to the year before. According to the Health Ministry on Wednesday, the number reached around 1.2 million. That's the highest since the country's medical tourism program began in 2009. Since then, the total has exceeded 5 million. By nationality, Japan topped the list, accounting for over 37%, followed by China and the U.S., and over half came over to have dermatology treatment. Spring is finally upon us, meaning more outdoor activities and festivals for us to enjoy. And that being said, our Yoon introduces us to a flower festival to check out this weekend.
The Bucheon Azalea Festival is blooming. The vibrant pink azaleas have people soaking up the spring vibes. Bucheon City, not too far from Seoul, is hosting this beautiful festival at Bucheon Stadium and Wonmisan Mountain or Wonmisan Azalea Hill. The trails around Wonmisan Azalea Hill offer a great opportunity to enjoy both the stunning azalea blossoms and the natural beauty of the landscape while hiking. It's a perfect way to soak in the scenery and get some fresh air.
I visit every year. Taking in the scenery brings me a sense of peace. Now, at 72, I find myself reflecting on the beauty of life and the passing of time.
It was my first time to come and to see these beautiful flowers, and I came to see the azalea blossom, and then I roamed around and saw lots of beautiful flowers, and then I found out the market which was nearby, and there I enjoyed the food and all these. It was crowded, but if you want to have beautiful aesthetic photos for your Instagram or social media, I recommend you to visit here. Yeah.
A key goal of the festival is to boost the local economy by hosting a variety of events and activities, such as making custom azalea-themed bags.
The Azalea Festival is timed to coincide with the spring bloom, transforming open spaces at Bucheon Stadium into interactive attractions. To promote cultural tourism and support the local economy, the festival features a flea market with local artists, small business product sales, and a variety of food trucks.
Many other spring blossom festivals across South Korea are still running. Other major festivals include the Daegu eWorld Blossom Picnic, Taean Tulip Festival, Jinhae Gunangje Festival, and Koksong World Rose Festival. The Bucheon Azalea Festival will run until April 6th. However, music performances have been cancelled as a mark of respect for those affected by the recent tragic wildfires in Gyeongsangbuk-do province. Spring is here, but so are heartbreaking losses. Yoon, Arirang News.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Choi Ji-hee. Good morning, Ji-hee.
Good morning, Tommy.
So Ji-hee, let us begin in the Middle East. Israel has intensified its military operations in the Gaza Strip. Fill us in.
Sure. Israel's Prime Minister has announced a major expansion of offensives in the Gaza Strip, aiming to increase pressure on Hamas to release the remaining hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday local time also mentioned establishing a new security corridor called the Morag Corridor through southern regions between Rafah and Khan Yunis. The Israeli Defense Minister has also announced a significant expansion of military operations in Gaza involving the occupation of large areas of land. Meanwhile, overnight airstrikes have claimed the lives of more than 40 Palestinians. A strike on a United Nations Relief and Works Agency shelter for displaced individuals resulted in the death of 19 people, according to Gaza's health ministry. Israel said it attacked a Hamas command center set up in the facility. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is making his first trip to Europe since the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant against him in November 2024 for alleged war crimes in Gaza. China has concluded 2 days of large-scale military exercises around Taiwan, intensifying regional tensions. Taiwan condemned the drills, vowing to maintain regional peace. The People's Liberation Army conducted the Straight Thunder 2025A drills on April 1st and 2nd, focusing on the Taiwan Strait and the East China Sea. These exercises included live fire drills and simulated precision strikes, targeting key infrastructure such as ports and energy facilities. The Shandong aircraft carrier was also deployed and operated east of Taiwan, integrating naval and air units. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense reported that multiple warships and aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait, prompting the island to deploy its own rapid response exercise. The United States condemned the drills, while China's Eastern Theater Command stated that the exercises achieved their objectives. Moving over to Europe, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte announced on Wednesday local time that during the first quarter of 2025, NATO allies pledged over $21 billion in military aid to Ukraine. Rutte stated that the NATO command in Germany, specifically the NATO Security Assistance and Training for Ukraine, would continue to coordinate military aid to Ukraine and the training of Ukrainian soldiers. The announcement comes ahead of a meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Brussels on Thursday and Friday, where further support measures for Ukraine are set to be discussed. In the United States, renowned actor Val Kilmer passed away on Tuesday night at the age of 65. The cause of death was complications from pneumonia. Kilmer had previously battled throat cancer diagnosed in 2014, which significantly impacted his health and career. He was celebrated for his performances in iconic films, including Top Gun, in which he played the character Iceman. He also played the role of the Caped Crusader in Batman Forever. Kilmer is survived by two children, Mercedes and Jack Kilmer, who continue his artistic legacy in the acting industry.
Make sure to dress in layers today to handle the big temperature swings. This morning, some inland areas are seeing frost, making for a chilly start, but temperatures will rise rapidly by the afternoon. But again, the air will not be great in parts of the west. Here in Seoul, we may also see worsening fine dust levels in the morning and at night. Meanwhile, dryness has improved, but dry advisories remain in place for inland Gyeongsang-Bukdo province and southern Jeju. With windy conditions, even a small spark can quickly spread, so please be cautious. Most regions will be under partly sunny skies with warmer highs than yesterday in central parts, topping out at 17 degrees here in Seoul and over in Daejeon, but notice cooler air in southern areas. However, Jeju Island will be much breezier, topping out at 13 degrees. Looking ahead, this Saturday, most of the country will see rain. However, morning and afternoon temperatures will continue to differ by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, so we'll only need jackets for the mornings and evenings, but be sure to keep them handy.
That is all we have for our morning edition of Arirang News. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.